The end of the earthers used to be the religious nut jobs who'd go up to the hill and like wait because they did some math on the Bible, and now
Mayan calendar.
Now it's all the atheist nut jobs, and it's not going to be the wrath; it's going to be the earth.
It's making you look bad as an atheist.
I gotta say, the real thing about being an atheist is no team, man. Just chillax, have a beer. That's the whole point. You get to watch football on Sunday. If you're gonna go
here now,
half the fucking nation's gonna go to it's gonna go to church on Sunday, and the other half's gonna go to a rally. Fuck that. Go watch football. Like that's why you should be an atheist. Yeah. Jay, what are you? You have a religion?
I would classify myself as agnostic, so I'm going to take the cop-out answer of saying that I was raised in two faiths. I was raised Catholic, really Catholic, but my father was Jewish, and my mother felt it incumbent upon her to expose us to that side too. My dad couldn't care less if we went with him to synagogue or not, so any kind of sense of Jewishness that we had was my mother kind of making up for the fact that we were around all of her Irish Catholic family. I got atheist for a second, but then it felt like disingenuous for me to... For me, personally, in stuff I've experienced in my life, it would be disingenuous for me to deny the existence of something. But it would be equally disingenuous and kind of hypocritical for me to go and try to tell people that I believe in something. I know I have experienced enough in my life that I don't know the answer.
Is there something you could share, like a moment?
Absolutely, yeah. No, like I have... Yeah, fuck it. I'm just gonna go super frank here. You asked this question, buddy. So just in hindsight, remember. No, I'll be perfectly frank. I made kind of an attempt at really hurting myself when I was like 18 or 19, and I was in the basement of my mother's house, and at the fucking moment, my cell phone rang, and I let it go, and then my home phone rang, and I let it go, and then the cell phone rang again. And at this specific moment where I was kind of feeling the worst I've ever felt in my entire life, where I was kind of hopeless, a friend of mine was trying to get in touch with me. And I remember in that moment kind of coming to, and the first thing I thought was, this was on purpose, and God got my friend Evan to call me at the time that he did, and I haven't looked back since. And it seems to me it would be kind of disrespectful to that moment for me to pretend that I am completely the master of my own destiny. Now it's that does not make me devoid of responsibility. I just have seen and felt. I'm gonna sound like a fucking lunatic, but I've seen and felt a sort of music and a magic in my life that every time, the best way I can put it is like this, and this is the Catholic in me. At my most atheist, I denied the existence of God. I never once denied the existence of the devil. So I think I'm scared shitless, too scared to be an atheist probably, and too respectful of the kind of nice stuff that's happened to me.
That was super well put, and
the great magnet.
The older I get, the less I don't even like atheists. I'm just somewhere in whatever works for you mode.
That's me.
If you don't mind, a couple questions.
Please.
You're thinking about suicide, and you're in the basement. You were saying like at the moment, like you taking pills or gonna hang yourself?
I grabbed some. It's basement, a bunch of piping, exposed wire and shit, and I just pulled one down and kind of. Yeah, put it around me and started leaning forward, and it was at that very fucking moment that the phone kept ringing.
And when you...
I can't believe that's the first time I've ever said this in public.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a big deal.
We'll cut this out.
No need to.
No, I think it's super human of you, and obviously obviously people are listening and having any thoughts like that. They can
I just want
realize. Well, there's a couple things they should realize. That I think one is nobody would look at you and go, that's what that guy. They'd think, oh, he was funny. He must have been hanging around with Seth Rogen, having a good old time his entire childhood, and he would nobody. So I think it's good to realize that anyone can do both.
Absolutely.
And so you were essentially going to hang yourself, and the phone kept ringing, and it woke you up sort of as a sign at the moment. Like,
and it was of all... And it wasn't like somebody was randomly just calling me and letting it go to voicemail. They called me on my cell, then called at my mom's house, then called my cell again. So it was like of all the moments that my friend could be insisting on getting a hold of me, it's this one, right? And it felt kind of like, Yeah, I if that's not God, I don't know what that is. Either way, I respect it.
Did you speak to the friend and ask what his sense of urgency was? Did he have a version?
He was just fucking trying to get a hold of me to go to the movies or something. But it was completely innocuous. But I fucking told him as soon as I got on the phone, "You saved my life, man," you know. And yeah, because it was also like I was having a real rough go of it. It was like, you know, a few years after that, I have a fucking full-on nervous breakdown and be diagnosed with like pretty severe anxiety disorder. But I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what panic attacks were. I just knew I was scared all the fucking time of everything. And then I had this run where, a relationship end, and then my dad fucking overdosed and died a month after.
Oh my God.
And sort of shortly thereafter, I had my little moment down there.
This is when you were 18, or right about then.
Yeah.
It always feels like for young boys, it's a relationship. Oh, it's a perfect storm of bunch of stuff, but the relationship is the thing that.
Guys always handle it worse than girls. In my experience, the ones that I've known, typically, now this is a huge generalization, but I find like girls can sort of take their licks and move on. I find it's like the Adam Sandler character on SNL and Weekend Update. Remember, he used to play the ex-boyfriend who's obsessed with his, you know, he just wants his ex back. I think there's way more boys that do that than girls.
You know what? I think that's really interesting, and I've anecdotally found that to be true as well. And I've never had this thought before, but I'm wondering if it's because for girls at that age or women, it's heartbreaking and it's sad, and you're mourning a future that never came. But for men and for boys, it's part of your identity that's being taken from you.
And I think it's because you think you're better than a relationship. Because we're bred in this culture to think that as boys that any kind of monogamous impulse is a sign of weakness or something like that. And I also think that for no two buts about it, it's a man's world. And so I think girls, when they take that lick, it's just shitty thing 200 out of 1,000.
Is this a Wednesday?
Yes, I honestly think there's something to that, because I know like hardest person I've ever known is my mom, and she suffers no fools, and she holds a fucking grudge like nobody's business, but that's because she has a sense of responsibility. And you know, bad stuff happens, okay, so be it. You know, what's your fucking excuse now? You know, like she rails against this sort of cultural this trend of lack of responsibility that we're going towards, whereas like everybody's got something, but as my mom says, at a certain point, so what? And I think that's probably, in addition to being a pretty serious, hard worldview, it's also a profoundly female one, I think, too.
It's interesting.
I have thoughts.
Please.
I want to get back to Jay. I also realize it's also this, too. When you're 18, 19, 20, 21, because I've been on the losing end of this, women are at the height of their powers and men are nowheresville. Like when I was 20, I drove a piece of shit pickup truck. I made $7 an hour. I lived in an apartment. I slept on a futon with a dude in a one-bedroom apartment. I was not a catch.
Nor was I.
The chicks who dumped me could date a producer or something. They could go way up the scale.
Where were we going?
We're going fucking New Jack City, where we were going. I was going fucking nowhere. I was using my tears for lube. Nothing.
That's it.
I was like, I knew I had no money. I drove a piece of shit. I had nothing.
And it compounds your self-awareness.
You have no street value at all.
Right.
You don't fucking walk into a bar and go, all right, ladies, I've arrived. I'm free up now.
Yeah.
Who wants to blow me?
Yeah.
Just one line, please.
No, you have no juice at all.
No.
Now, later on, I remember thinking, God, I was devastated for like a year. I was a mess, depressed, like, oh, blah, blah, blah.
Because it screwed with your identity as well, right?
It was, here's what it was. I couldn't have been lower in life. So you took away the only thing that was good. Work sucked, job, home, life, apartments, everything was bad. Later on, I had the experience of breaking up or getting dumped when I had a career, when I had money, when I had a house, when I had a car. And like, oh, that's not that bad at all. Because I have 80 other things that are working. And now this is tough, but but there's 79 others
But
that
a
work.
bitch ain't one.
Or do you
Thank
think?
you.
Or do you think you've just been through it enough that you got calloused?
There's an element of everything, but I could remember when I got dumped when I was like, I don't know, I was like 23 or something. My life was so uncomfortable and so distressing and so boring and so everything that I didn't. If I had something to throw myself into, like a career that was humming along or something like that, I would have taken it much better. Just all the great distractions of life. But anyway,
and just so I'm clear, don't get me wrong, that shit hurts, and women feel it, and it devastates you. I'm not saying one's easy and one's not.
Right, but I realized that so much of my being fucked up for a year had to do with everything else in my life being fucked up simultaneously.
Right. Oftentimes, the breakup in your 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, that the relationship is the only good thing in your life.
Yeah,
I mean, you're alive,
as a guy,
something is going well in your life.
If you really think about it now, you know, hey, if I could bang a hot 23-year-old chick, that'd be a pretty good day for me about now,
And
right?
how?
All right, well, the 23-year-old version of me was banging a hot 23-year-old chick, living in a one-bedroom apartment with 3 dudes and driving a Mazda pickup truck with a fucking bench seat in it. Like, that guy was banging a 23-year-old chick. So now you've removed that, and all that's left is the pickup truck in the apartment. So Jay... we won't dwell on too long, but I appreciate.
I don't know where my candor came from there, but
well, I feel like we bonded over the price of gas in Toronto. You became more vulnerable.
A softer place to fall.
So, you were diagnosed with what, and then how did you overcome that?
Yeah, generalized anxiety disorder. But basically, my father was bipolar, and his brother was schizophrenic. A lot of issues, at least on that side of the family in particular. And I found a shrink, man, and it was a combination of a shrink and medication. And I think that had I done just one of the two things, I think I would have. I don't know that I would have kind of figured it out. And by the way, it's not a binary, finite thing. This is my issue my entire life. It's a question of mitigating as best I can. You know, life isn't a fucking movie, right? I don't learn a lesson and then Bob's your uncle. No, you got to keep learning sometimes the same fucking lesson. But for me, it was like, it was. I had to get over the shame of needing help. I had to get over the shame of needing meds and needing to see a shrink. Because I was like, and I'm still kind of weird about it. I don't love talking about it. Old-fashioned way of thinking, you know, but so be it. You know, if it's like I had a broken leg, whatever, get a fucking cast, that'd be good. But, you know, my head was hurt and I needed some help. And meds and therapy, man, and years of it. And
do you do cognitive behavioral therapy?
Is
that, I don't know if that's too personal, but just more changing the behavior as opposed to like lay on a couch and talk about old times.
Both. I definitely do both. I think I have to be proactive, and a big part of that is like figuring out what's wrong with me, man. Like it was always easy for me to give my father shit for positions he put me in, give my job shit for how it made me feel, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. But, it's all me, right? Like, nobody makes anybody feel anything. We all have the choice to react and feel how we want. So that, by the way, is the hardest shit. That's the fucking hardest thing I ever had to do, is admit what was wrong with me and what I didn't like in me. And I try my best to hold my own feet to the fire still, right? So I'll have reactions to things, and they'll be real strong. And rather than just like let it subside and move on, I try to ask myself why the fuck I thought that. And because sometimes I have thought processes that I'm not proud of, man. I'll react to things in a way that, and I'll wonder, what the hell am I reacting to? And why did it garner such a fucking reaction out of me? And I try my best to try and, give myself shit when I need to, man, because I don't know how else I can get better.
Well, yeah, and hopefully you'll stay ahead of the boulder next time.
Yes, correct. Yeah, ideally.
Well said.
Dr. Drew will be upon us.
There's a therapist right there.
Oh, Mike's
got
a
Mike.
therapist, but Dr. Drew will be here in about 14 minutes, and I cured him of a panic attack. So if you need
I don't know if
me,
you're going to like his tactic.
maybe.
I didn't.
Tough love.
fucking
If
worked.
he ever did this to me, I would probably drop
It
dead.
worked. No one has ever been pulled out of a panic attack faster in the history of television production.
You have to tell him.
I shall. I'll tell you first. Let me just hit the cash. But and I'm curious. Have you had a couple panic attacks?
Not fucking in over 10 years, man. And right before I went into therapy, I was at my I don't want to say apex, because it's the worst. So nadir. I was averaging like 5 or 6 of them a day.
Oh.
I'd wake up with butterflies in my stomach every single day. That antsy feeling when when the cop pulls you over.
The dread.
I woke up feeling that every morning, and that's just like, man, that's no way to live. Fuck that.
I had what I would consider to be close to, or maybe a panic attack for the first time in my life. I don't know if I shared it with anybody, but I was on. It was weird because I'm very like, I played Pop Warner football, pull yourself up by your boots.
Yeah, of
like,
course.
get
Yeah,
going,
walk
get
it
going.
off, walk
All right,
it
walk it
off.
off.
Same.
Rub some dirt on it or walk it off.
That's how my dad was.
I was getting ready to shoot a live TV show that was going to go on live on, I don't know, History Channel or the Spike or whatever it was. So I had this live show to do, and it was coming. It was like a whole series of 1 hour live, and we're going to do it live, and I thought, oh, okay. And then there was a whole bunch of other travel and gigs and whatever, and I had to go to Amelia Island, Florida, and I had to leave like LAX at like red eye and fly to Florida and like land at like 7 a.m. or something like that, and then go to the hotel and then go out and do some event or something. And I was just drinking in first class, like on the flight all the way over there. And I got to the hotel. So I basically kind of stayed up all night, essentially, just drank all night. Got to the hotel, got there at like 7 a.m., was like trying to go to bed, was thinking about doing this live show in like 2 days, and I started having this bizarre, like horrible feeling of like anxiety, and it was like, and I started realizing, oh, this is what a panic attack feels like, a weird sort of to your soul, not a dread and not really in your head, but some sort of visceral,
terror.
cellular, like
the killer's in the house
feeling, and I went, oh, this is what that is. This is what that is. Then I felt bad for a second about what I did to Dr. Drew. But then I realized...
From a panic attack to a heart attack is what that would have been.
How perfect it was. All right, I'll tell Jay about it. Yes, Brent.
Well, based on your description, the sweat, the panic, just the overwhelming, like, I think I had the same thing when I first saw Alice Eve and she's out of your league. I lost that. Oh, my God.
Oh, wow.
It's coming on again.
Looking at her now.
Oh, my God.
All right. Drew was having a panic attack. I did not know that was part of his repertoire, but evidently would happen from time to time. We were filming a show, and we were gang taping. And I was pause. And he was in his dressing room having a panic attack, and I couldn't stand taping 4 1 hour shows in a day, and we were like between show 2 and show 3 or whatever, and like I wouldn't want to stay there any longer than I had to, and I was like, where is Drew? And they're like, he's having a panic attack, he's in his dressing room. And I walked in his dressing room, and all the producers were like standing around him, like fanning him, and he was breathing into a bag and stuff. And I just went, what the fuck is going on? And he's like, he's having a panic attack. And I'm like, I'm from North Hollywood. There is no panic attack. No one panics. They get attacked, but they don't panic. There's something you do to yourself. And he's like, I'm having a panic attack. I'm like, get your fucking ass on stage right now. Get out there. And Drew who was having a panic attack, but he's also kind of dutiful. Like, if you point, he goes, I was like, you get on stage, you sit there, you do nothing. You have your panic attack. Have your panic attack.
So there's no crying in baseball.
Right. I'm doing the show. I will do the show. You sit there and have a panic attack. And he went out there and he just sat down and I said, roll it. Let's go. Get the cameras going. Here we go.
The theme of the day, compassion.
That's right. I said, fire it up. And he fired it up. And, we got a caller. And, like, they asked a question and Drew wasn't talking, like, for the first minute of the whatever. And then at some point, Drew just, like, chimed in. And the next thing you know, he was just chiming in.
Wave passed.
Kind of looked at him and he was involved with the work. Like, he'd been sucked into the work. Like, I guess if I was in my hotel room in Amelia Island at 7 in the morning and there'd been a fire alarm going off and people rushing to the elevators, would I've continued my panic attack or would I've just got up and run for the elevator? I don't know.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You can always muscle through it. And if something worse comes along, bigger fish to fry, 100%. But that doesn't change the fact that your brain is not producing the appropriate amount of chemicals for you to function the way that everyone else is,
Right. So
I just can't stop thinking about when I first joined the team here and we were traveling all the time. I was terrified to fly. And I had to get over that real quick. And then going on stage, I was terrified. And I've been musical theater and stage my whole life, but this is a different genre, what we're doing here and what Adam does. And I was so scared every night. And what I realized quickly was I was absolutely almost about in tears before every show, except the second the music started and we'd walk on stage. Because then all of your focus has to change. You do not have a choice. But up until that moment, I was really, really suffering until we got our rep. I got my reps in with the team.
It's never the moment, And I've got a lot of veterans in my family, including my stepfather, and he'll tell you that when shit was kicking off, he was cool as a cucumber. You could hear a pin drop. He was focused and relaxed, more relaxed than he's ever been. It was once it was over and he had time to process it. So it's the lead up or it's afterwards, the debrief.
But not while the tiger's chasing you.
No, absolutely not. No, that's just reflex.
Right.
That's instinct.
Yeah. So
I suspect.
Yeah.
Do you have, other than therapy, are there things like I started the show by explaining that I took Mike Lynch, who's at my house because we're working on a book, and we did my cold water plunge into my swimming pool this morning, which just makes everything but that cold water go away. There is no other thoughts.
Absolutely.
And I thought, therapy, meds, what other... But there's many, there's
100 things.
There is meditation, there's floating and deprivation tanks, there's cold water plunges, there's types of workouts. Are there things that you employ?
Yeah, for sure. And I know that no matter what I'm doing, no matter how long I've worked in a day, no matter how early I have to work the next day, I'll take a minimum of an hour to, I hate hokey terms like this, but to get out of my head. I have to not take my day to bed with me. That's a fucking big one, because if you go straight to bed after work and you wake up right to work, you're fucking exhausted. You start the day exhausted. I also just learned how to avoid situations that now this is not me being reactive. This is just me knowing that I thrive in certain situations and I don't in others, and so I try to avoid those. But yeah, it's going to sound like really hokey, but just taking a fucking walk and shoveling the snow and just whenever there's shit to be done, to do it, man, and to just and to always have chores and to have fucking shit and to be of use, because I think even if I hate it, and my wife she'll roll her eyes when she listens to this because I never do enough fucking chores, but however, I think we're all German shepherds, and you kind of need a context, and you need so there's the stuff we do to make ourselves happy, and I write a shitload and I read a shitload, but I also I need to just be out there kind of just doing normal stuff too. That was the other thing, is I have for the entirety of my career. I'm 37. I started when I was 12, so it's a long ass time. I've always felt ashamed for doing a silly job. And
what's a silly job?
Acting and
make
stuff.
believe.
Oh, doing a silly job.
Yeah, because I never want to lose that thing, completely. It's not that I disrespect. I revere what I do, and I adore the world I get to populate. And it's just a big movie nerd, so to get to work in movies is a dream. However, it's still, no matter what, as a boy who grew up, working the lower middle class, who had cousins and uncles that became soldiers and shit, and I no matter what, it'll always feel like a goofy gig to me, and I kind of had to make myself feel more like a normal person. I think that's probably maybe part of why I've always lived in Canada.
Well, I've been preaching this more and more over the last few years as I sort of see everyone kind of going nuts, feel people going nuts around me. Got to get out there and do those tasks, and it's like the other day. Last weekend, I said to my son, we're going to patch the tire on your bike. You don't know how to do that, but I know how to do that because I did that when I was a kid. And I said, okay, here we go. And we pulled the back tire off. And I opened up the tire and pulled the tube out, but I said, I only did one side and pulled the tube out. I didn't pull the whole tire off. So now it's there. We can just tuck it back in. Then I put some air in it, and we walked it over to the freezing swimming pool, and we held it under the water, and you could see where it was leaking. I was like, okay, we're going to mark this. Then we went back, and we literally patched it. And then I said, you get the compressor, put the air in there. Let's put air in it, put it back under in the pool, no bubbles, put it in the tire, and just did the process with him. Now,
that just wastes my time.
Could have sent anybody to just go to the bike store and go get I mean, I have guys who work for me. They just go get a tube, go put it in the guy's bike. Who cares? I'm not going to deal with that. But I was like, I want to do it. I want to show you how to do it. I want you to get something out of knowing how to do it.
And he's going to remember that shit forever, man, because I remember the day my dad gave me his tackle box. When I got to take over his tackle box, I mean, in truth, it was just because he got a new one, and he didn't want his crappy one anymore, a shitty old one. I had G.I. Joe decals for my vehicles and shit on it. But I still fucking remember that. I remember him and everything, every aspect of him teaching me how to fucking cast, him teaching me how to make lures, all that shit, man. You can't put too high a price on that.
I know, but when you said just go out and shovel snow, I thought so many people I know go no, you don't shovel snow.
You don't have
get
to.
the guy to shovel the snow. It's you go back in and watch MSNBC and then that guy will shovel snow. And it's no. Go shovel snow. You need to do that.
It feels good, and your body and your soul want you to do that shit.